What are some of the biggest lottery crimes going on? Let's find out, starting with number 8, the worst lottery lawyer. In an update to a story we've previously covered, the self-proclaimed lottery lawyer, Jason Kurland, was handed a 13-year prison sentence for orchestrating a massive scheme that saw him pilfering $107 million from lottery winners. Our previous coverage delved into Kurland's exploits, where he took advantage of the newfound fortunes of jackpot winners for his personal gain. This development, however, brings an end to the legal proceedings that unfolded. Kurland, a partner at a Long Island law firm earning a comfortable $500,000 annual salary, targeted high-stakes lottery winners starting in 2018. His clientele included a $1.5 billion Mega Millions winner, a $245 million Powerball winner, and a $150 million jackpot winner. He promised to provide sound financial advice, but instead, Kurland maneuvered his way into their winnings, diverting the funds into risky businesses he co-owned with associates Francis Smukler and Francesco Russo. The Brooklyn federal judge who presided over the case said that the lucky winners turned out to be losers in their encounters with the lottery lawyer and condemned Kurland's actions, comparing him to a burglar who exploited his direct access to the winner's money. Kurland received kickbacks for channeling funds into ventures he covertly shared with Smukler and Russo, all while concealing these connections from his clients. As the scheme unraveled, Kurland, Smukler, and Russo engaged in high-risk deals amounting to a Ponzi scheme, resulting in a $40 million loss. To recoup their losses, they turned to Christopher Cierchio, a reputed Genovese crime family soldier who promised to help them recover the funds through investments in personal protective equipment pandemic deals. However, the trio, along with Cierchio, skimmed millions off the top instead, diverting funds from the purported PPE investments. In a tearful statement during his sentencing, Kurland expressed remorse and shame for his actions, acknowledging the harm caused to his clients and family. The judge handed down the hefty sentence while Kurland's lawyers vowed to appeal. It's good that this guy got what he deserved. How does someone make $500,000 a year and still feel the need to steal from other people? Oh, because he's greedy. Number 7. Jamaican lottery scammers. 3 New York residents, Caron Pitter, Rohan Lyttle, and Charlene Marshall, originally from Jamaica, were convicted of fraud and money laundering charges following a 2-week jury trial. The trio, lawful permanent residents of the United States, were found guilty of participating in a scheme that preyed on elderly victims of a Jamaican lottery scam over 3 years. The indictment accused the defendants of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and mail fraud, as well as conspiracy to commit money laundering. A 4th defendant, Rohan Lyttle Jr., Rohan Lyttle's son, is facing similar charges but remains a fugitive. We know he's still out there. Lock your doors. The scam involves someone in Jamaica posing as a representative of Publishers Clearinghouse, reaching out to elderly Americans using lead lists containing personal information. The victims were told that they had won substantial prizes but needed to prepay taxes and fees to claim them. The scammers tricked the victims into making payments through various channels, including mailing packages, bank-to-bank wire transfers, Zelle, MoneyGram, and Western Union. Testimony from victims revealed the extent of the fraud, with a 78-year-old from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, a 70-year-old from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and a 90-year-old from Walterboro, South Carolina, collectively losing over $1.1 million. The victims talked about how they were told to send money to the defendants, who operated an auto body shop named Roker's Auto in Queens, New York, and an associated used car dealership in Kingston, Jamaica, known as Rollcam Company Limited. The defendants had used the money to buy and repair salvage vehicles, which were then shipped to Jamaica for sale. The victims weren't only defrauded of cash, but also coerced into sending funds for various purposes, such as buying parts for a promised new Range Rover and covering purported upgrades. The evidence presented in court outlined how the defendants used deceptive tactics to disguise their receipt of victim funds, distributing money among themselves and breaking up larger amounts to evade reporting requirements. The investigation into this elaborate scheme was conducted by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, which is apparently a thing. The defendants faced some pretty significant penalties, including imprisonment, supervised release, and fines as determined by the federal sentencing statutes and guidelines. This story is a good reminder to make sure you get in contact with your elderly loved ones and let them know about this scam or ones like it, since they are the primary targets. Number 6. Clerk tries to steal a winning ticket. Manuel Reja Gonzalez, a lottery ticket seller from A Coruña, Spain, once hailed as a good Samaritan for his supposed efforts to locate the owner of a roughly $5.1 million winning ticket, faced accusations of attempting to actually defraud the winner. The vendor's act of publicly seeking the rightful owner, which made this guy into a bit of a local hero, took a turn when police alleged that Gonzalez, along with his brother, employed by the National Lottery, aimed to claim the prize for themselves. Despite attempting to collect the winnings on 5 separate occasions, Gonzalez was reportedly denied each time by lottery authorities. He was then charged with fraud, while his brother faced charges of money laundering, both carrying potential sentences of 6 years. Of course, both brothers vehemently denied the allegations. While Gonzalez was celebrated as a good Samaritan, lottery organizers grew suspicious that he was actually a bad Samaritan and started an investigation to find the ticket's real owner. A total of 317 people across Spain said they bought the winning ticket. Hey, so did we! But all were eventually discovered to be a bunch of pretenders. So, police, responding to a judge's order, launched an investigation by tracking ticket purchases with the same numbers in holiday destinations like Mallorca and Costa del Sol. They actually found the real winner. And sadly, the winner's wife said that he passed away, so he won the lottery and never even knew. Prosecutors alleged that Gonzalez had tricked the man by providing a smaller prize than he was entitled to when checking his numbers. The money, prosecutors argue, should rightfully go to the widow and daughter of the deceased ticket purchaser, which we can all agree with that, right? The accused ticket seller faced potential imprisonment, while his brother, charged with money laundering, may also face severe consequences. And what a great way to make everyone hate you even more. Steal the ticket and then lie to everyone by saying you'll track down the real owner. Have fun finding a new place to live, Manuel. Number 5. An honest mistake. Contrary to our normal lottery stories, this isn't another scam, but an honest mistake that turned into a $300,000 windfall for a lucky Illinois man. Michael Soapstahl, on his routine visit to his favorite eatery just across the Michigan border, decided to try his luck in the Wolverine state drawing, something he did every few weeks. Little did he know that a simple blunder by a store clerk would lead to a life-changing win. During his visit to the Go Low gas station in New Buffalo, Michigan, Soapstahl asked the retailer for a ticket for 10 draws in the Michigan Lucky for Life lottery. However, an accidental mistake by the clerk resulted in a ticket with 10 lines for each draw. Despite the mix-up, Soapstahl decided to just keep the ticket, because that's what you're supposed to do when you have something weird happen when you're buying a lottery ticket. Soapstahl's decision to keep the ticket proved to be a wise move, as he discovered he had won $25,000 a year for life when checking his numbers one morning. Excitement and contemplation ensued as Soapstahl considered the possibilities, whether to take a lump sum or opt for the annuity option. Eventually, he made his way to the lottery headquarters to claim his prize. Opting for a lump sum payout, Soapstahl walked away with a hefty $309,000. The unintended overcharge of the store clerk became a stroke of luck for the Illinois resident, highlighting the unpredictable nature of lottery wins and the unexpected turns that can transform an ordinary day into a life-altering moment. The story does leave us wondering if the unattentive store clerk at the Go Low gas station received any reward for his inadvertent mistake that led to Soapstahl's win. Would you go back and hook the guy up a little? Let us know what you do in the comments. Number 4. Clerk steals $40,000 in lottery tickets. Emily Ellis, a former employee at Deer Park Deli in Ohio, got in trouble after allegedly stealing over $40,000 worth of scratch-off lottery tickets from the family-owned store. The investigation began when the Ohio Lottery noticed an unusually high volume of scratch-off ticket sales from the store. Apparently, Ellis took the lottery tickets from the deli's back office, marked them as sold, and cashed in the winnings. The extent of the theft only became apparent when the store's owners and Ohio Lottery investigators uncovered Ellis's scheme. The stolen amount, totaling $40,500, had a pretty big impact on the small family-owned business. Deer Park Deli, in operation for more than 70 years, has been a staple in the community, offering a variety of products, including produce, meat, liquor, and grocery items. The Koltoff family, current owners of the deli, were shocked and disappointed over the magnitude of the theft, which nearly bankrupted their business, which is crazy since Ellis was just taking tickets. That was lotto tickets. See what we did? But really though, who's keeping the books over there at that gas station? Number 3, stolen identities. Michigan Powerball winner Christy Davis, who won a $70 million jackpot in 2020, is fighting for the privacy of lottery winners after falling victim to identity theft and scams. The Michigan law dictates that winners of multi-state games like Powerball cannot remain anonymous, leading Davis to become a target for scammers. What was that thing Biggie said? Never let anyone know how much money you have. Yeah, it applies to all games in life. Anyways, Davis's highly publicized win made her a prime target for identity theft. Scammers created multiple fake social media accounts posing as Davis, claiming to give away portions of her winnings. These accounts asked people for their bank information under the guise of making a donation. Once the scammers received the bank information, they wiped out entire savings accounts. Despite wanting to claim her prize anonymously, Davis's lawyer's attempt was unsuccessful due to the Michigan law. Despite friends clarifying that these posts weren't genuine, the scammers persisted. Davis argued for the need for lottery organizers to understand the consequences of exposing winners' names, sharing her experience with the Michigan lottery accusing her of scamming people. But it's not like they care about the common person. The scammers used various tactics, sending messages with varying amounts of money to different individuals and local groups. These messages claimed to be from Christy Davis, announcing donations and asking recipients to contact a designated agent for their winnings. Screenshots of these fraudulent interactions have been shared on platforms like TikTok. Christy Davis's experience shows that the challenges faced by other winners, particularly in states where anonymity isn't an option. While states like Delaware, Kansas, Maryland, North Dakota, Ohio, and South Carolina allow winners to remain anonymous, others expose them to potential risks like the identity theft and scams. Davis, who went from living paycheck to paycheck to winning $70 million, urges for privacy protection for future lottery winners. Many lottery winners have come forward with stories about how they're harassed nonstop by people looking for handouts, not to mention the constant attempts at identity theft. And really, there's no good reason to expose lottery winners anyway. Officials claim that it's for transparency, to improve public trust in the lottery, make sure winners pay taxes, for advertisement, and to prevent fraud, but that all feels like pretty flimsy reasons. Still, we'll gladly take on those problems for $70 million. Number 2, just one number. Taylor Octave is a marketing apprentice from southeast London, experienced an unusual twist of fate in the Euro Millions lottery. She bought a ticket for a mega draw and was left totally bummed when all the numbers on her ticket were just one digit away from the winning combination. The row of numbers on her ticket, 5, 13, 24, 45, 49, with lucky stars 6 and 11, was agonizingly close to the actual jackpot winning numbers. Of course, Taylor was disappointed, but knew that while winning the lottery is already a long shot, being so close made it sting just that much more. After realizing that each of her numbers was only one digit off from the winning ones, Taylor couldn't help but contemplate the life-changing possibilities that had slipped away, like literally everyone else. Had she won, Taylor hoped for a vacation in the Maldives and planned to buy houses for her mom and 3 older sisters. Having recently started an apprenticeship after leaving school, she mentioned that she would have quit her job to contribute to the fight against homelessness in London. Taylor's lottery endeavor with her sister Lauren aimed for the staggering £178 million jackpot, a prize that eluded them despite their close call. The odds of being one digit away from every winning number were calculated by a probability expert as 1 in 1,092,486, higher than the odds of actually winning the jackpot, which stands at 1 in 139,838,160. While the jackpot went unclaimed, Taylor managed to win £2.80 from one of the entries after matching 2 numbers, which is like $3.50. Yeah, you'd spend that much in gas just going to cash it out. Taylor's story stands out as a remarkable instance of luck that, while incredibly unlucky, doesn't involve any criminal activity. It's just a crummy case of what could have been. If you're enjoying this lottery video and want to know the best way to maximize your chances to win, be sure to stay right here to find out how these winners cracked the lottery in this marathon video. Number 1. Gimme all your tickets. Police in West Virginia are on the hunt for Tyshawn Tyrez Williams, the alleged mastermind behind a lottery ticket scam that has defrauded several local convenience stores of thousands of dollars. The sheriff's office issued a news release stating that Williams is sought in connection with incidents involving the fraudulent purchase of lottery tickets and credit card fraud. The latest reported incident was at the Little General gas station, where Williams is said to have entered the store and, in multiple transactions, purchased $3,500 worth of lottery tickets using several credit cards. But the credit cards used in the transactions were stolen, making the purchases fraudulent. Detectives are actively working on the case, and the investigation has unveiled a pattern of similar scams at multiple stores in surrounding areas throughout the state, with Williams allegedly orchestrating the lottery ticket and credit card fraud. As of now, no charges have been filed, but authorities are urging anyone who recognizes Tyshawn Tyrez Williams or believes they may have been a victim of the scam to come forward and contact law enforcement. It's important to note that this is an ongoing investigation, and as of the release of this video, Tyshawn Tyrez Williams remains at large. The dumb thing is, what if he wins big? He's got to go collect the money and he's going to get caught. Even if he's just buying scratch-offs, he's not likely to win enough to make it worth the risk of getting caught for the amount of trouble he'll be in. Of course, he's got to commit lottery fraud to cash them in and also owe someone else that money. Has another Ivy League betting group cracked the lottery? 66 winning lottery tickets for roughly $6.3 million. That's how much this Ivy League betting group has won. What's up with Ivy League alumni cracking lottery? For this particular lottery group, they're alumni of Princeton University. So far, they've won more than $6 million from lotteries all over the U.S. Exactly how they're doing it and exactly what their profit margins are isn't exactly clear. What's different from the methods of other lottery groups? Are they just doing the same brute force method? Or is it a different method with a twist? This betting group's unusual winning streak really started getting media attention after Manuel Montori cashed in his winning tickets in Indiana. Normally, a winner winning the top prize would get some attention, but it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. However, because Manuel cashed in not one, but 61 winning tickets all at once. That's how the group got everyone's attention in 2020. All of the group's winnings for those 61 tickets came from the same game called $7 Million Mega Cash. Just one of those tickets sells for $30. Most of Manuel's winners were for $1,000. His total for that day was around $88,000. That was just one day in just one state for the group. Manuel had been on an 18-month winning streak, and that winning streak included much larger paydays. Manuel is part of a betting group that includes at least 3 other known Princeton alumni. Matthew Gibbons, Hannah Davenroy, and Zoe Buenato make up the rest of Black Swan Capital LLC, a company Manuel incorporated. The group's biggest payday came back in October of 2020. On one lucky day in October, Manuel collected the $5 million top prize from a scratch-off ticket in Missouri, and the group had many other wins as well. Manuel wasn't the only member to collect the cash. For example, Hannah collected 121 grand from the Missouri lottery in September of 2020. She also collected a cool $1 million from the DC lottery in December of 2019. There's also a very good chance that they've had other big paydays that just haven't been reported if they aren't obligated to. But the thing is, lotteries today have been extremely careful to combat the brute force methods of betting groups. Black Swan's winning record begs the question, did they come up with their own formula? Are they actually profitable? Have they actually found a way to beat the lottery in a new way? In Indiana, Hannah and Zoe went on a buying spree in the final months of the Mega Cash game. They bought as many as 400 tickets at a time during several visits. Of course, the clerk working the counter got curious. They actually told the clerk that they were conducting a study that would later be shared on YouTube. Ultimately, the clerk estimated the girls purchased around 1,600 tickets at a cost of $48,000. And that was just at that store. The other 60 winning tickets Manuel cashed in for $88,000 were bought from more than 4 dozen different stores all over Indiana, according to lottery records. If they spent similar amounts of cash at each store, they would have spent at least $2.3 million. Then there's the time and gas involved for each of the trips. Winning the $7 million ticket was actually what they needed to turn a profit, but they didn't find it on this betting spree. We don't need to say winning 88 grand to try and cover 2.3 million is a losing proposition, and that wasn't the only time their betting has been unprofitable. For example, in 2019, they were close to winning $1 million in the Hoosier lottery draw at Indiana State Fair, but they ended up going home with just a $500 consolation prize. However, they hit their jackpot on another betting spree. In Missouri, Hannah and Zoe bought thousands of $5 million cash extravaganza tickets. This time, Hannah and Zoe were dropping roughly $8 grand every time they visited a store. And their big gamble paid off big time on this trip. Black Swan Capital had found a $5 million winner, and Manuel swooped in to collect this big prize as well. So, what exactly was the group's strategy? No expert has been able to figure it out so far. They only have guesses. It seems like the members use publicly available data on ticket sales and unclaimed prizes. Basically, when they know a jackpot hasn't hit, they do the calculations to see whether or not it'd be profitable for them to play. Lottery sites will often update their website daily with this information about how many prizes have been claimed for each scratch-off game, but it's still incomplete information, something we'll get to in a bit. The more information any betting group has, the more advantage they have for a profit. Manuel and his partners aren't exactly talking about their money-making machine. All 4 of them have avoided interviews and generally kept a low profile regarding their winning across the country. They only have been in front of the media when it's required for someone to be. Black Swan Capital first came up in connection with the lottery after Hannah posed with a giant $1 million check made out to the company back in December of 2019. The winning ticket was actually purchased at the same liquor store as a $100,000 winner Manuel had cashed in 9 months earlier. Black Swan Betting Group is classified as an open-ended investment fund. In case you didn't know it, the term Black Swan event refers to an extremely rare event that happens in the right conditions. So what's publicly known about the members? Manuel majored in philosophy at Princeton. He graduated in 2017, and he worked as an analyst at the Princeton University Investment Company, which manages the university's endowment, just like the name suggests. The rest of the members all attended Princeton University as well. Matthew Gibbons majored in computer science and history, and then went to work for ZX Ventures, an investment group part of InBev in New York City. Hannah Davenroy studied physics at Princeton and graduated with Manuel and Matthew in 2017. She then got a job in New York at Bloomberg NEF, the energy research arm of Bloomberg. Zoe Buenato went to Princeton and earned her doctorate in 2018 in history. There have been successful betting groups before Black Swan Capital, such as Random Strategies, formed by James Harvey from MIT, and GS Investment Strategies, formed by Jerry and Marge Selby. Click here for the links to those videos and about these betting groups. Even with these profitable betting groups from years past, experts have doubts that it could result in reliable profits in today's ever-adapting lottery games. For example, the odds of winning the $7 million jackpot in the Hoosier Lottery scratch-off game was about 1 in 2.7 million. Even if the group improved those odds and purchased thousands of tickets, they would still face a significant risk of missing the jackpot. And officials know that these games aren't cracked using the same brute force tactics employed by the other betting group. According to Philip Stark, a stat professor at UC Berkeley who studies lottery odds, Black Swan Capital's lottery betting doesn't make sense. Jeffrey Misnikowski is another statistician at the University of Buffalo. He says that there are a lot of variables that go into calculations, but he still can't figure out how the group is doing it. His guess is that the group must have access to insider information that's not publicly available. According to him, lotteries just haven't put out enough public information that any algorithm that the Black Swan Group could have come out with to figure it out. Basically, it seems to us that he's saying either they have inside information or they're just gambling. But executives of the state lotteries haven't been concerned about Black Swan's winning streak. In fact, lottery officials in Indiana, Missouri, and DC all stated that they did their vetting on the members before giving their winnings, according to the newspaper, the Indiana Star. Nicole Jordan, the director of marketing and communications for the DC Lottery, explains that they do vetting on their winners just so there's transparency for the players. They want to make sure the game is as fair as possible for anyone involved, no matter how skilled they are. Jordan admits that the information they put out definitely helps some players. She said, quote, "Some people are better gamblers." Wendy Baker, communications manager for the Missouri Lottery, told Indy Star that nothing about Black Swan came back as unusual. And betting groups aren't anything new to lottery officials. It's been going on for decades. However, Baker did tell one interesting fact about lotteries. According to her, just because a prize hasn't been won, it does not necessarily mean the ticket is still in the field. Apparently, for the Missouri Lottery scratch-off game, appropriately called Scratchers, they don't track the jackpot. They don't have certainty on what's happened to a jackpot ticket until it's actually claimed. If it's true that they don't track it, then it's true that it's impossible to tell what's happened to the ticket. So the winning ticket could easily be bought by someone and accidentally thrown away. This makes the Black Swan betting group strategy even more curious. So far, the only thing known for sure about Black Swan Capital is that they exist. What's not out in the open is how they're doing it. Stat experts are extremely curious to the method they seem to have figured out. It's impossible to know exactly how much Manuel and his partners have profited from the prizes they've won. Maybe, just maybe, they're not profitable at all so far. Meet the MIT Lottery Group. If anything involving numbers involves student from MIT, aka the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, you know those guys are going to figure it out. There was the famous blackjack team that ran from late 1979 through to 1989. That was well documented and made into a movie. However, not many people know about this MIT team that cracked a lottery. Just how did a team of former MIT students figure how to beat the lottery hundreds of times? In 2005, James Harvey was at the end of his time at MIT, where he was finishing up his math degree. He needed a project for his final semester in school. He stumbled on lotteries during his research for a topic. Harvey began analyzing well-known lottery games such as the Powerball and Mega Millions. Those lotteries were big lotteries with big prizes, which is something that attracted all sorts of players. But he soon became intrigued by a lottery called Cash Windfall. This was a new game that was introduced in Massachusetts in 2004, and it was only in Massachusetts, limiting the player pool. The rules were simple for this lottery. Players could choose 6 numbers for each ticket, and each ticket costs just $2. At the beginning of the lottery, if a ticket matched all 6 numbers in the draw, the ticket holder won a jackpot of at least $500,000. And if a ticket matched some but not all the numbers, a ticket would win a little bit of money. The lottery was designed so that for every dollar played, 60 cents would be paid out in prizes. This, of course, is a losing proposition in the long run. The rest of the 40 cents of that dollar would just be spent on whatever the government deemed was needed in the local community, just as usual. Cash Windfall seemed to be just like all the other lottery games that were available. If no one won in a particular week, that prize would just roll over to be combined with next week's prize, something that plenty of other lotteries had as well. However, the problem for lotteries with rollovers is that there are times when no one wins for a very long time. Lottery officials worry that if no one appears for a long time in the local newspaper or local TV station with a giant check, people stop playing because they don't see people winning. And because of that, they stopped playing. The Massachusetts Lottery faced precisely that challenge in 2003. Its Mass Millions game went without a winner for an entire year, and ticket sales fell. Lottery officials didn't want the same thing to happen with Cash Windfall. So, lottery officials decided on a big change. Instead of rolling over the prize money when no one won, they instead would roll down the prize money. Basically, this means that there would be a guaranteed winner once the prize grew to a certain amount. And this rule change was the key to everything. If the prize rose to $2 million without a winner, that triggered a roll down. The jackpot would be split among the players who had matched 3, 4, or 5 numbers. Before each drawing, Cash Windfall would publish its estimate for the jackpot, which was based on the ticket sales from previous draws. When the estimated jackpot reached $2 million, players knew that someone had to win. Lottery players intuitively realized that the odds of winning money were far better in a roll-down week than at any other time. This meant that ticket sales always surged, something that was exactly what lottery officials wanted. It didn't take long for Harvey to calculate that the expected value to play Cash Windfall was better than any other lotteries. This just means that it was actually profitable to play the lottery, although it doesn't mean wins are guaranteed. When a roll down happened, there was at least a 15% return for every dollar paid. The big risk here was the 1.4% chance that the jackpot would be won, and that means no one else would get paid out. For Harvey, his only problem was capital, that and how long his group could play the game. In February of 2005, Harvey formed a lottery group with some of his fellow MIT students. Roughly 50 people chipped in for the first batch of tickets. They raised $1,000 total for that round. Although they didn't win the big one, Harvey's calculation proved to be correct. The MIT group tripled their money the first week they played in the Cash Windfall lottery. And that's how Harvey's life completely changed. Over the next few years, playing the lottery became a full-time job for him. Cash Windfall had become the most profitable lottery in the US. By 2010, he and fellow team member Rohan Lyttle officially made it into an incorporated business. They named it Random Strategies Investments LLC. This was named after the smallest dorm at MIT, a dorm that Harvey lived in. During the summer of 2010, the Cash Windfall jackpot again approached the roll-down limit. After a prize of $1.59 million went unclaimed on August 12th, the lottery estimated that the jackpot for the next round would be around $1.68 million. The roll-down was at least 2, maybe 3 weeks away. By the end of the month, the jackpot would be almost guaranteed. But for some reason, the roll-down came the very next week instead. There had been a huge increase in ticket sales that week, triggering the roll-down. Lottery officials were just as surprised as the players, and the fact that a betting group would corner the market was something that they had anticipated. Still, they had never sold that many tickets in a week before. When Cash Windfall was first introduced, lottery officials researched the possibility of someone deliberately triggering a roll-down by buying up a big number of tickets. They calculated that a player who used stores' automated lottery machines would be able to churn out about 100 tickets with random numbers per minute. If a jackpot had less than $1.7 million, that player would need to buy over 500,000 tickets to push it above the $2 million limit, because that would take well over 83 hours, and that's if they did it over 83 hours non-stop, something that was impossible. The lottery didn't think anyone would be able to do it in time at $1.7 million, but they didn't properly take into consideration the lengths certain betting groups would go to, specifically the MIT lottery team. When Harvey first started doing lottery research in 2005, he tried to get a copy of the guidelines for the official rules of the game. He was looking for rules that outlined just exactly how prize money was distributed. A whopping 3 years later, in 2008, the lottery finally sent him what he had requested. The information was what pushed him and the group into overdrive, because they had the exact calculation instead of just the models they had come up with. The group figured out that their time to strike was when the jackpot failed to top $1.6 million. That was the magic number where they figured that they can realistically start their push of buying tickets. The unexpected surge lottery officials saw that second week of August in 2010 was a methodically planned out operation by Harvey's group. They had been planning all year for it. In fact, they had been planning the prior year too. The MIT lottery group had to fill out around 700,000 tickets. Here's the crazy part. They did it all by hand. 700,000 tickets by hand. However, their efforts paid off. It's estimated that the group made around $750,000 that week. Unfortunately for Harvey and his partners, the profits didn't continue for that much longer, at least in that particular lottery. Within a year, the Boston Globe's Andrea Estes had discovered that cash windfall could have been gamed by sophisticated mathematicians. She went ahead and wrote about it in the paper. That news report prompted Gregory Sullivan, Massachusetts Inspector General, to do research into the lottery in 2011. Sullivan concluded that the actions of the MIT Lottery Group and other betting syndicates were entirely legal and that no one's odds of having a winning ticket were affected by high-volume betting. But the game was gradually phased out anyways. Even if cash windfall had not been phased out, the game wouldn't have remained profitable because of the publicity it received. That was simply because of the fact that after the news report came out, people started forming more and more betting groups. As more people bought tickets and rolled down weeks, prizes were split into smaller and smaller chunks. That meant the ROI shrunk since it was a zero-sum game. At the beginning, during normal weeks, picking 5 out of 6 numbers correctly meant a $4,000 win. During a roll-down week, that prize was anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. The amount depended on how many winning tickets were cashed. Fewer winning tickets translates to larger payouts. For example, in Cash Windfall's first year, the prize for picking 5 numbers correctly once exceeded $100,000. The MIT betting team anticipated the competitive environment and made their move to corner the market earlier to obtain an edge over other teams. The MIT group also had a better understanding of the game, better than any of their competitors. They knew the exact payoffs and probabilities because of the information from the lottery officials themselves. However, the MIT group also knew that their approach would mean that large betting groups would catch on and start buying tickets as well. They knew that it would become a race to the bottom. Surprisingly, the MIT team wasn't the leading winners in Cash Windfall game in 2010. They were second in amount of money won. The group that made the most money is called GS Investment Strategies, which was run by Gerald and Marjorie Selby. They made almost $1 million in just that game that year. Jerry and Marge have actually roughly made $26 million in profit from playing the lottery. Then there was just the matter of logistics. The MIT team had handwritten all the tickets and it took them roughly a year to do it. And just because there was a machine at a store, there was the matter of convincing store clerks to print out hundreds of tickets at a time. There were plenty of stores that would refuse to serve teams altogether. However, on the other hand, there were some store owners that made it a priority to sell to teams. That's because they got a commission equal to 5% of the lottery sales. And even if someone was able to get on a machine, there were other problems. The ticket machine would jam in humid weather, and if the machine was low on ink, that slowed down the printer a lot. Then there are all the other random issues that theoretically can pop up in buying lots of lottery tickets, such as getting robbed. There was also the question of how to store and organize all the tickets they bought. Harvey had to keep millions of losing tickets in boxes in order to show audits if it happened, and it was a giant headache to find winning tickets. Betting groups are not new. They've long used the tactic of brute force attacks to beat lotteries. The only real obstacle is buying enough tickets. It's more a question of manpower than mathematics, and this reduces the exclusivity of the methods. However, Harvey knew this coming in, and that's why they took the time to meticulously outthink and outmaneuver their competition. Even with their edge, though, Harvey knew that it couldn't last forever. He realized at some point the sheer legwork to win this particular lottery could not outweigh the money he could have made doing something else. To this day, there are still gambling groups that operate around the world that have managed to repeatedly and legally beat whatever games they play into a profit. From 2004 to 2011, professional gambling groups spent about $40 million on Cash Windfall to win roughly $48 million. That $40 million in extra tickets worked out to around $16 million extra dollars for the lottery fund. Who were the big losers? The average player, of course. How he easily rigged a lottery. Eddie Tipton is easily someone who orchestrated one of the biggest lottery scams ever done in the US, totaled more than $24 million in cash. The mastermind behind the scams was a self-professed computer geek with a criminal past. Eddie Tipton rigged lotteries across 5 different states. He wasn't just any criminal who tried to make a living from hacking or scamming. In fact, Tipton was the former information security director of the Multi-State Lottery Association. But the question is, how did he do it? And just why would the lottery knowingly hire an ex-convict to fill that position to begin with? Long before Tipton started working for the lottery, this computer programmer had actually pleaded guilty in 1982 for his role in a warehouse burglary. He was only 19 years old when he faced up to 20 years in prison for his felony conviction, but the judge pretty much gave him a chance to turn his life around. He was instead given 2 years of probation and was ordered to pay over $1,000 in restitution. And this wasn't his first time turning to crime. Before his warehouse burglary, Tipton was also convicted for stealing computer software from a department store. According to Indy Star, Tipton told federal investigators that his software theft was a, quote, Jerry Springer-style incident that was more of an argument with a Sears employee. Whatever Tipton meant, it just sounds like he was trying to downplay the seriousness of his crime. He was given 6 months in jail plus probation, but his crimes didn't matter. Well, not to lottery officials anyway. Tipton actually never expected he'd even be granted an interview with the Lottery Association when he applied. But he must have thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. What did he have to lose? He never thought he'd actually be hired and eventually become one of the most trusted lottery security officials in the nation. But that's what happened. Tipton was shocked that his prospective boss paid him to fly from Texas to Des Moines for an in-person job interview. He came clean regarding his criminal past and spoke extensively about both of his convictions during his interview. He was hired anyway. He even questioned his new boss, Ed Steffen, if he was sure of his decision to let him in. The Lottery Association took down Tipton's fingerprints and did a background check on him. They did this just to make sure he didn't do any more crimes. They then went to the Iowa Gaming Commission to clear him for security. Shouldn't this position be the type of job that needed someone with a completely squeaky clean past because of the huge incentive to cheat? Maybe they just really believed in third chances at the lottery, or maybe Tipton just had connections. Eddie graduated from the University of Houston, who was a talented software engineer, and here's where it gets interesting. His prospective boss, Ed Steffen, wasn't just anybody. In fact, he was a longtime friend of Tipton. Steffen recommended him for the position as he also worked for the Multi-State Lottery Association. Tipton was hired to design the software that the lotteries would use to randomly generate winning numbers. The Multi-State Lottery Association is an American nonprofit government benefit association based in Iowa. It's owned and operated by agreement with 34 different lotteries. The organization basically oversees the operation of these lotteries, with the most notable lottery being the Powerball. What's interesting is that the Iowa State Lottery, a member of the association, prohibits felons from working for them. But that rule apparently did not extend to Multi-State Lottery Association employees. Many reports say that it isn't clear why the Lottery Association executives overlooked Tipton's criminal convictions, just like his boss. As the head of the Multi-State Lottery Association's IT security, Tipton apparently felt underappreciated and overworked. According to Indy Star, he was working 50 to 60 hours per week, and he was often in the office late into the night. Tipton complained that his managers expected him to take on more roles that were practical. Tipton explained that he wrote software, worked on web pages, did network security, and did firewalls. Then he had to do his regular auditing job on top of all that. Tipton said, quote, "They just found no limits to what they wanted to make me do. Maybe this was motivation for him to steal." It also seems like his bosses just trusted him with everything. It was the lack of care and oversight that allowed Tipton to write, install, and use his secret code without being busted. According to Tipton, no one really truly cared about security of the lottery. Tipton said he even warned his bosses about the system's security risks. In 2006, there was an error in the random drawing software. The same exact numbers were drawn in the same exact order in the same year in a Wisconsin lottery. Tipton loved playing games in general. He grew up playing the fantasy game Dungeons & Dragons, but why did he decide to rig the lottery the way he did it? The only reason he rigged the lottery, according to him, was because it was just a puzzle. He said he wasn't really trying to crack the code for the money. It wasn't his intention to start a lottery ticket scam, but obviously that's exactly what he did. It was an offhand conversation with a coworker in 2005 that set the challenge for him in motion. His coworker worked as an accountant for the same association. He jokingly asked Tipton, "Hey, did you put your secret numbers in there?" When Tipton asked what he meant, Schaller replied, "Well, you know, you can set numbers on any given day since you wrote the software." And that's when Eddie had ideas. It was after this conversation in 2005 that Eddie wrote a piece of self-deleting software designed to hijack the random number generator algorithm. Here were the conditions that a lottery had to meet. 1. The lottery drawing had to take place on May 27th, November 23rd, or December 29th. 2. The lottery drawing had to take place on a Wednesday or Saturday. 3. The drawing had to take place after 10 p.m. Of course, these conditions meant that Eddie didn't rig every lottery. It was a rare occasion that all 3 conditions were met. But when they were, the software would produce winning numbers using an algorithm that Eddie came up with that he would be able to solve. For nearly 10 years, the software allowed Tipton to rig the drawings for different lotteries. Tipton was one of the few employees who were allowed access to the random number generating computers used in the drawings. He tampered with the security cameras just for extra security on his end anyways. Then he installed the code and waited for the lotteries to match the conditions he set. With the algorithm he came up with, it improved his odds of winning from 5 million to 1 down to 200 to 1. Tipton also decided to involve his younger brother Tommy in his lottery plan. Tommy Tipton was a former sheriff's deputy in Texas. Luckily for Eddie, Tommy was in Colorado at the time of a lottery that met his conditions. On November 23, 2005, the drawing for a $4.8 million lottery jackpot was taking place in Colorado. Tommy was a member of the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. His search for Bigfoot brought him in town just in time for the drawing. So Eddie gave his brother sets of numbers to play. Tommy was hesitant at first. He consulted his friend Louis Vallejo, a Texas defense lawyer. Tommy wondered whether it was legal for him to play the sets of numbers given to him by his brother. Even though Eddie worked at the Lottery Association, Vallejo encouraged Tommy to play the numbers because he couldn't find any reason why it would be illegal. Let's cue the memes for, if this guy is your lawyer, you're probably going to jail. So Tommy bought the lottery tickets. Surprise, surprise, he won the big prize. He asked his friend Alexander Hicks to cash the winning ticket in exchange for 10% of the winnings. There were actually 3 winning tickets for the $4.8 million prize. One of them was an easy pick ticket that was a legitimate winner. The other 2 winners were tickets manually entered with the numbers Eddie came up with. One ticket was collected by Hicks on behalf of Tommy Tipton, and the other ticket was by Texas attorney Thad Wisenant. Wisenant created a LLC named Cuestión de Suerte, which is Spanish for question of luck. However, Tommy theorized that somehow his supposed friend, Louis Vallejo, somehow stole the numbers to share in the big prize. Lottery investigators became suspicious about these 2 tickets and began investigating. After the lottery win in 2005, Tommy asked the owner of a fireworks store in Texas if he could swap some bills. But the owner just felt something was up, so he declined. Afterwards, he reported what happened to the police, who then told the FBI. The FBI eventually questioned Tommy why he was trying to exchange roughly $450,000 in consecutively marked bills in 2006. Tommy told them the truth. He said that he won the Colorado State Lottery in 2005. He claimed that the reason why he was trying to exchange the bills was because he couldn't tell his wife about playing the lottery since gambling was against her Christian faith. That explanation was good enough for the FBI. They never investigated further to make connections about Eddie. And of course, Tommy never voluntarily shared that information either. Eventually, the FBI dropped their investigation and the Tiptons were able to resume their lottery scheme. In 2007, Eddie approached former colleague and close friend Robert Rhodes. They ended up partnering on a Wisconsin megabucks drawing that met Eddie's conditions. Eddie gave Robert hundreds of sets of numbers and told him to play them all. They won over $700,000 from the December 29th drawing. Robert created the company Delta S Holdings LLC to collect the money. Everything seemed to go smoothly for another 3 years. In 2010, another lottery in Iowa met the same conditions Eddie set. This time, the jackpot was worth $16.5 million. Everything was the same this time except for one thing. Tipton made the dumb move that ultimately exposed his scheme. He bought the hot lotto winning ticket himself. Just why? He could have easily gotten someone else to buy it. Our theory is that some strange hiccup must have happened for Eddie to take this risk. Of course, when Eddie bought the ticket, he was caught on camera. But he was sure that Rhodes could claim that it was him in the video. So he told Rhodes again to cash in the inevitable winning ticket. And here's an important detail. Eddie had specifically told Robert to not wait until the last minute to claim the prize. That's because if he waited until the 11th hour, that's when everybody would be interested in finding out who exactly the winner was. But Rhodes ignored Eddie's instructions because he had his own plans. For months, the Iowa lottery officials publicized the win in an effort to get the winner to come forward, and Rhodes kept on waiting. Lottery officials announced that they had footage of the winner buying the tickets. Lottery officials received a lot of calls from people claiming that they had won the lottery. None of them was able to show proof of the ticket. On December 29th, 2011, a local attorney representing a local trust showed up to claim the win with less than 2 hours to go before the deadline. And this was planned out all along by Rhodes. However, the Iowa State Lottery doesn't allow anonymous winners under any circumstances, so officials refused to do a payout unless someone came forward and revealed themselves. After a month of going back and forth, the jackpot claim was withdrawn. Eddie most likely knew that it was either give up the money or risk going to jail. Obviously, this was completely unusual, so lottery officials launched a lengthy investigation. After 3 long years of investigation, lottery officials still had trouble connecting anyone to the lottery, so they decided to release the footage of the person buying the winning ticket. Ultimately, it was one of Tipton's own co-workers who recognized his voice on the footage and reported him to the authorities. Eddie told investigators that he was in Houston when the purchase took place, but what he didn't know was that they had a cell phone records placed him that day in Des Moines, the location where the ticket was bought. On January 15, 2015, Tipton was charged with 2 counts of felony fraud. The first count was fraudulently redeeming a lottery ticket, and the other one was for influencing the lottery through fraud, deception, or tampering with local lottery equipment. While he was found guilty of both charges, his defense filed an immediate appeal. While the appeal was pending, investigators continued their investigation. Prosecutors eventually connected 4 more fraudulent wins to Eddie that totaled more than $24 million. In 2017, Robert Rhodes also pleaded guilty to charges related to his role for the 2010 Hot Lotto drawing and the 2007 Megabucks drawing. In order to get a reduced sentence, he agreed to testify against the Tipton brothers. Rhodes was sentenced to 6 months of home confinement and was ordered to pay $409,000 in restitution. On June 12, 2017, Eddie Tipton pled guilty to his 2 felony counts and also for computer crime. He was sentenced to up to 25 years in prison, but according to prosecutors, he'll most likely only serve 3 to 5 years. As for his brother Tommy, he pled guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to commit theft, and he was sentenced to 75 days in jail. The Tipton brothers also agreed to pay a total of over $2.5 million in restitution. Remember Tommy Tipton's lawyer friend? He did turn out to be confirmed to be associated with Thad Wisenant. However, it's still unclear how they got the winning numbers. The Iowa Attorney General's office released a statement for the public to come forward with any information about Wisenant and Vallejo's connection to the Tipton brothers. They still have not been charged in connection with any fraud yet. How they cracked the lottery for millions. Win the lottery and do whatever you want. That's the dream for almost anyone that plays the lottery. And for the vast majority of lottery winners that win millions, they relied on the chance to get their wins. But for one small-town Michigan couple, it was different. They used math to win a total of $26 million from playing the lottery. Jerry and Marge Selby figured out a loophole in the Michigan state lotteries. According to Jerry, it only took, quote, good old basic arithmetic to crack the code on certain lottery games. And they used it to their advantage to win the lottery thousands of times for 9 years. So, what exactly was this basic arithmetic? Let's find out. Long before Jerry Selby was cracking the code on winning the lottery, he first broke the code of the breakfast industry in 1966. Jerry started work for Kellogg's in Michigan as a materials analyst. Jerry was always into science and math. So, what does his job have to do with the lottery? According to HuffPost, Jerry noticed a string of letters and numbers stamped on a General Mills cereal box, which was one of the products on Kellogg's main competitor. He basically figured out how to trace any General Mills box of cereal back to its exact plant, shift, date, and time of its creation. If it were a different industry other than the cereal business, cracking a competitor's trade secrets might have generated Jerry millions of dollars in profit. He wasn't all about the money, though. Jerry just really enjoyed puzzles ever since he was a child. While Jerry grew up dyslexic and struggled through his reading assignments, he actually possessed another academic gift. That gift was in math. In fact, he took a standardized test in 8th grade that showed he could solve math problems at the level of a college junior. But let's quickly fast forward a few years. Jerry married his high school sweetheart, Marge, and had 6 kids with her. Jerry went and got an associate's degree from Kellogg Community College, a bachelor's in mathematics and business from Western Michigan University, and he even got an MBA. He and Marge lived a quiet life in Michigan. However, his brain would not quit working. He had actually mastered in math, but he wasn't able to finish it because of starting a family. Jerry just couldn't stop learning and thinking about numbers. He worked a series of factory and corporate jobs. He held positions such as a chemist at a sewage treatment plant and a salesman at a pharmaceutical company. But in 1984, he decided to stop working for big corporate. So he and Marge decided to run a convenience store. It was during this time that Jerry's puzzle solving really took off. He enjoyed solving any sort of financial puzzles that involved their store. And one of those puzzles involved the lottery machine they installed. Jerry became extremely familiar with all the odds for any games that the lottery came out with over the years. The lottery profits over the years helped to pay for the education of their 6 kids. Jerry and Marge retired in 2000, and Jerry's morning routine still included visiting the store and its new owners. It was then in 2003 that he saw the brochure for the new lottery game, Windfall. One Windfall ticket cost $1. Players pick 6 numbers from 1 through 49. A player would win the jackpot if they got all 6 of the numbers correct, and the jackpot was guaranteed to be at the very least $2 million. If no one won the jackpot, it would grow in size. And there was a big catch that completely made Windfall the lottery to play. If no one won the jackpot when it reached $5 million, the jackpot's roll down would be triggered. This meant that if any players had tickets that had anywhere from 2 to 5 numbers, they won some cash. And it was this exact roll down in cash prizes that intrigued Jerry. Because when the jackpot reached $5 million and triggered a roll down, it could be timed. The roll down would happen roughly every 6 weeks. While the state lotteries had roll downs, Windfalls was structured differently. According to Jerry, it only took him 3 minutes to figure out the game's big potential. He figured out that for a regular week without a roll down, players had a 1 in 54 chance to pick 3 out of 6 numbers to win $5. It was a 1 in 1,500 chance to pick 4 numbers correctly, which would win $100. When the jackpot roll down was triggered, the prizes were different. Each winning 3-number combination would win $50 instead of $5. For tickets with winning 4-number combinations, the payout would be $1,000 instead of the usual $100. Jerry quickly realized that the game had a positive EV. This meant that for every dollar he played, he would make more than $1. The worst thing that could happen was if someone won the jackpot. That meant no one else would win anything. But this still didn't make the game a losing proposition. Jerry couldn't believe that the hundreds of employees at the state lottery had overlooked a math loophole that was so obvious to him. He decided to test his theory. The first time he played, he spent $2,200. He got back $2,150. He lost $50, but Jerry knew he just had slightly bad luck. He knew his math was right and he didn't give up. Jerry realized that he needed to keep playing on a bigger scale, and that meant more tickets, and more tickets meant more money. So when the next roll down was announced, Jerry bought $3,400 worth of Windfall tickets. Marge didn't like risk. She was the pragmatic one in their relationship, and she disliked the uncertainty. And Jerry didn't exactly explain his calculations to her. Fortunately for Jerry, his math indeed was correct. The second time he played, he won $6,300 for a return of 46%. The third time he played, he put $8,000 on the line. This time his prize money was up to $15,700, which was a 49% return on his money. By this time, Jerry was absolutely certain he had cracked the Michigan State Lottery, so he decided to let Marge in on his big plan. He wanted to play for as much money as possible. He knew that he found his money-making machine. All he needed was to crank as much money into it as he could. Jerry and Marge soon started playing for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but with the sheer amount of money and legwork needed, they started recruiting other people. They decided to start a betting group. The Michigan lottery allowed large betting groups, so it wasn't anything illegal. Jerry and Marge decided to get their kids in on the secret. They created a corporation called GS Investment Strategies LLC in order to legitimize all their winnings and losses and to properly account for taxes. Jerry and Marge started selling shares at $500 apiece to friends and family. GS Investment eventually expanded to 25 members. His members included a state trooper, a parole officer, a bank vice president, 3 lawyers, and his personal accountant, Steve Wood. By 2005, GS Investment Strategies LLC had played Windfall on 12 different roll-down weeks. Their bets increased anytime they had more access to capital. With more tickets bought, this meant more winnings. The profits just kept rolling in. But the money-making machine in Michigan couldn't last forever. In May 2005, the Michigan Lottery shut down Windfall. They claimed that the sales of Windfall tickets had been decreasing, something that factored into their decision. Luckily for Jerry and Marge, the very next month, one of their members saw that Massachusetts was promoting a brand new lottery game. The game was named something slightly different. It was called Cash Windfall. There were a few other differences, but the basics were still the same. For example, one difference was how much Cash Windfall tickets cost. It was $2 instead of just $1. Players also had to pick numbers from 1 to 46 instead of 1 to 49, and the jackpot rolled down when it got up to $2 million, not $5 million. Jerry quickly made the calculations, and he came to the conclusion that this game wasn't any different than Windfall. It was another profitable lottery game that made sense to play. Jerry and Marge drove over to Massachusetts during August of 2005. They spent $120,000 on 60,000 Cash Windfall tickets the first time they played. They stayed at the Red Roof Inn and basically had tickets all over their room. They were so busy counting tickets that they never left their room except just to get food. And once they claimed their winning tickets, they would drive back to Michigan with the thousands of losing tickets. They would store them in plastic tubs in their barn in case any IRS auditors wanted to see the paper trail when they claimed losing tickets against their winning tickets. For over 5 years, Jerry and Marge would drive to Massachusetts anywhere from 6 to 9 times a year to repeat the process. They would go, buy, and print the tickets, count them at the Red Roof Inn, redeem the winners for a giant check, and then drive back to Michigan with the losing tickets in their trunk. What Jerry and Marge didn't know was that they weren't the only betting groups. One student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology named James Harvey had also cracked the code to the lottery. He had analyzed all the different state games in Massachusetts as part of his research to graduate. Just like Jerry, he figured out that playing Cash Windfall was like printing money, and he formed his own betting company. Find out more in this video here. As the game went on, the MIT students played with more aggression by making an insanely large bet. In 2010, they bought 700,000 lottery tickets, which cost about $1.4 million. Apparently, it was more than enough to take the jackpot over $2 million before the lottery officials knew what was happening. The MIT students won up to $700,000 in cash profit. Another player who had discovered the secret was a biomedical researcher at Boston University named Ying Zhang. Zhang formed his own club called the Dr. Zhang Lottery Club Limited Partnership, and he got his friends to play. They played anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000 during roll-down weeks. The game was so profitable for Zhang, he even quit his job as a biomedical researcher to focus on playing the lottery full-time. But with all the betting groups going on, the Massachusetts State Lottery became aware of several irregularities in Cash Windfall. The unusual patterns they noticed indicated that something was up. By 2011, the Boston Globe received a tip and found that in certain Massachusetts locations, Cash Windfall tickets were being sold in huge volumes. The Boston Globe's investigative reporters revealed that the Selby's and the MIT betting group were dominating Cash Windfall, and that was the beginning of the end. The Boston Globe articles raised suspicions that the game was rigged. The Massachusetts State Treasurer eventually shut down Cash Windfall and started an official investigation. There was also news that made it look like Jerry was a cheater, but the investigation revealed that the two groups were actually winning completely legally, and the state had made a lot of money because of them playing. Jerry and Marge played Cash Windfall for the last time back in January 2012. From their 9 years of playing the lottery, they earned a total of $26 million and made about $8 million in profit before taxes. According to the HuffPost, Jerry still plays the lottery sometimes. He plays the multi-state Powerball jackpot. Other times, he would also go to a casino and play poker, just like any smart, calculated gambler. Jerry used the money to buy coins from the U.S. Mint as a hedge against inflation to protect his family from future catastrophes. He was also able to fill 5 different safe deposit boxes with gold and silver coins. The Selbys also used their winnings to renovate their house and help pay for their grandchildren and great-grandchildren's education. They also developed a new business venture in construction financing. Jerry now lends money to home builders in his local area who provide housing for military veterans. Who knows? Maybe a movie is in the future, as they also gave the option for their life story to be turned into a movie. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have: unlimited gas for life or free groceries for life.